Welcome back to MKT Stories, where we bring you engaging and emotional stories. Today we're going to tell the story of Ethan, a single father who has gone through the unthinkable with his twin daughters. My name is Ethan. My wife passed away while giving birth to our two daughters, leaving me with a huge void that I can't fill. Since then, I've been both a father and a mother to Olivia and Elisa, two children who are so alike that sometimes I have trouble telling them apart. Olivia, the older daughter, is always calm and thoughtful. Elisa, the younger, is emotional, always bright and bubbly. Life hasn't been easy, but seeing my two children grow up day by day, I feel I have a reason to keep going. I've tried my best to give them a fulfilling childhood, despite the lack of emotional support from their mother. During those years, I had only one wish: to see my children grow up, become good and happy people. Now Olivia and Elisa are 20 years old, beautiful, smart, and promising girls. But I never expected that one day they would choose to repay me in a strange way that was beyond my imagination. It was a strange afternoon. Instead of returning home at dusk like every other day, today's work had a little change. I got to leave work earlier than usual. Feeling relieved because I rarely had the chance to return home early, I quickly walked home, eagerly thinking about relaxing in a rare quiet time. As soon as I reached the gate, I realized that the door was only ajar, a rare occurrence. My heart tightened slightly. An unclear premonition crept into my head. I paused for a few seconds and then gently pushed the door open to enter. As soon as the door opened, the sound of laughter from the living room made me stop immediately. Those were not the familiar sounds of my daughter watching a movie or chatting with friends. The voice was strange, a man's voice. I stood still, trying to listen more, feeling uncomfortable starting to rise in my heart. Olivia's giggles mixed with that voice made my heart beat faster, both worried and confused. I walked slowly towards the living room. My legs felt heavy with each step. The sounds became clearer and clearer. Curiosity and unease made me unable to stop. When I reached the door, the scene inside appeared like a sudden shock to me. Olivia, the little girl I had always loved, with her sister and a strange young man were there, naked. All three seemed to be immersed in their own world, not paying attention to their surroundings. I stood still, all my emotions frozen from shock, then bursting into uncontrollable anger. "What is this?" I shouted, my voice booming, shattering the air that was filling the room. The three of them immediately jerked out of their trance. The young man fumbled to pick up the scattered clothes, his hands trembling as if he didn't know what to do under my seething gaze. Olivia stood motionless, her face pale, her eyes wide open, her lips moving as if she wanted to say something but no words came out. The older sister was no different, just standing there, her whole body trembling, trying to cover herself with the pillow on the sofa. "Dad." "Dad's back," Olivia spoke first, her voice weak. "What are you guys doing?" I roared, my hands gripping the armrests of the nearby chair, trying to contain my rising anger. Olivia rushed forward, her hands outstretched, as if begging for forgiveness. "Dad, I beg you, calm down." Let me explain, but I didn't want to listen. How could I listen when I was faced with such a depraved scene? Every principle, every value I had tried to impart over the years seemed to vanish in that moment. My eyes turned to the young man. "Get out of here," now I shouted, my voice tearing apart the stuffy atmosphere. He timidly walked over, quickly putting on his clothes while bowing his head and mumbling a few apologies. When he was only a few steps away from me, I couldn't hold back anymore, intending to rush over and grab his neck to teach him a lesson. But Olivia was faster, rushing in front of me. "Dad, please, let him go. It's my fault. Please don't make a fuss, please." Olivia pleaded, her voice choked with tears. My eldest daughter also rushed over, hugging my arm as if to stop me. "Dad, we were wrong, but don't do this." I stopped, breathing heavily, my eyes still fixed on the young man who was tiptoeing towards the door. He stole one last glance at me, his legs trembling before he ran out. The door closed with a small sound, leaving a suffocating silence in the room. I turned back to look at my two daughters, the anger in my heart not decreasing. But when I saw Olivia's red, teary eyes, I suddenly stopped. How could I hit or scold them at this moment? The two daughters I loved more than life were now holding me tightly, trembling and full of fear. Unable to do anything, I left them both and ran upstairs. I slammed the door shut, the sound echoing dryly in the house that had fallen into silence. With my back against the door, I stood there, my whole body exhausted but my mind unable to calm down. My breathing quickened. I felt like I was being caught in a tornado, where everything became chaotic and there was no way to stop. They are my two beloved daughters. From the first day I held them in my arms, I promised myself that I would protect them, raise them well, and let them live a good life. However, what had just happened before my eyes was like a painful slap. They were no longer the innocent children I once knew, and I, a father, could no longer maintain the control I thought I always had. What had gone wrong? Since when had the distance between me and them become so great that I did not notice these changes? I walked to the window, pulled the curtains open to let the afternoon light shine into the stuffy room. The cool breeze blew by, but it did not calm the turmoil in my heart. I tried to remember the old days, the days when they still chattered around me, talking about school and friends. At that time, every word they said made me smile, feeling proud that I had fulfilled my role as a father. But now I wonder, when did that trust fade? Or was I so busy with work that I missed the signals I should have noticed? I thought of Olivia's red eyes, her trembling voice as she begged for my forgiveness. It hurt. As a father, I never thought I would have to face a situation like this. The anger still smoldered inside me, but not only for them. I was angry at myself, angry for not being able to stop this before it happened. Questions kept swirling. Why did they choose to do it right in the house, right in the middle of the living room, the place that had always been the center of family memories? Why didn't they think about how I felt, the one who had spent my whole life raising them, preserving the values I had always believed in? I wanted to understand, but the more I thought about it, the more confused and stuck I felt. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I put my head in my hands. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I tried to hold them back. Would crying change anything? As a father, I had to be strong. But I'm only human, and right now I don't feel strong enough to face this. I didn't know what to say, what to do when I saw them again. Scold? Punish? I had every right to do so, but would that make things better? Or would it just push them further away? A thought flashed through my mind. I needed to talk, but not right now. I needed time, not just to cool off, but to understand what had happened. Standing up, I walked to the closet, looking for a new shirt. My body was still drenched in sweat, but my mind was cold. I needed to go out, somewhere to calm down, to get away from those haunting images. This room, this house, everything here was suffocating me. I walked down the stairs, each step heavy, my heart heavy as if I were carrying a boulder. The muffled sobs from downstairs, Olivia and her sister, the sound of pain made me stop. All the anger inside me suddenly subsided, replaced by an indescribable heaviness. Even though I was angry, I knew I was the only one who could help them get out of this confusion, but not now. I needed time, needed some space to calm down, so that I wouldn't have to face them when my anger was still fresh. As I headed toward the living room, I was surprised to see that my daughters had changed. They were wearing thin pajamas that did not hide their uneasiness, but I was in no mood to pay attention to that. My mind was filled with chaotic thoughts, unable to focus on small details. Olivia saw me enter and immediately ran over, grabbed my hand, and gently pulled me closer. "Dad, come here, we have something to tell you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I tried to push Olivia's hand away, but the look in her eyes, fearful, teary eyes, made me unable to do so. They were my daughters. How could I be strong when I saw that look? After a little struggle, I followed Olivia and sat down on a nearby chair. I said nothing. just waited to see how they would explain. All I could do was stay silent, waiting for their words. Olivia sat down next to me, her eyes still fixed on me, as if afraid that I would stand up and leave. Her sister sat opposite, her face full of worry, but she didn't dare look straight at me. There was a long silence, only my soft breathing and the sighs of my two daughters. Finally, Olivia spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "Dad, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. I can't justify this. But I didn't think things would go this far. I didn't think you would come back so soon." Her sister also spoke, her voice choked, full of regret. "I'm sorry too, Dad. We didn't mean to do that. But at that time we just didn't know what to do." Olivia grabbed my hand, her eyes filled with tears, and continued to stammer, "I'm so sorry, Dad. I don't know what to say to make you forgive me." I looked at them, my heart filled with sorrow. Those apologies couldn't calm my anger, but I knew they were truly sorry. But perhaps this regret wasn't enough to heal everything. I sat silently, filled with conflicting emotions. Olivia's eyes, still filled with tears, were looking at me with obvious fear and regret. Her sister was no better, her eyes fixed on the ground, as if she didn't dare to face me. Those apologies, though sincere, couldn't calm the waves in my heart. I couldn't deny that they were truly regretful, but I also couldn't ignore what had happened. There was a long silence, only heavy breathing in the quiet space. I felt the trembling in my body, an indescribable feeling of choking. Suddenly, I sighed and said softly, "I know you're very angry, very disappointed. But what happened has happened. No one can turn it back." Olivia hurriedly grabbed my hand, her eyes read, "Dad, I really don't know what to do." I regret it so much. Her sister also bowed her head, her voice choked. We just wanted to try, but we didn't think things would go so far." A pain like tearing my heart apart, but I know scolding or anger at this moment will not help. Sometimes what I need is time, not only for them to understand what I did, but also for me to understand their pain. I looked at my two daughters, the children I love unconditionally, and suddenly, a strange warm feeling rose in my heart. The anger inside me cannot last forever. I am their father, and no matter what, I cannot let anger destroy this relationship. I pulled them into my arms, hugging both of them tightly, even though all three of us could feel the heaviness in the air. I said nothing, just hugged them for a long time, letting the feeling of peace return, even if only for a moment. Finally, I spoke, my voice low and soft. "I don't know how to prevent this from happening, but I will not abandon you. We will get through this together, okay?" Olivia nodded slightly, and her sister hurriedly followed suit. A quiet comfort filled the air. The three of us, though not in a good mood, at least had a starting point, a place to start again. My feelings were hard to describe, torn between anger and deep love for my two daughters. Although the disappointment still lingered in my heart, when I held them, all those feelings seemed to subside, giving way to another emotion, a painful but also compassionate feeling. I couldn't stay angry with them forever, because after all, they were still my children. When I let them go, Olivia and her sister were still sitting there, their eyes red, their faces full of anxiety. They didn't dare look at me, as if waiting for a final decision from me. Her sister bit her lip, then looked up at me, her voice choked. "Dad, I know I did wrong. I can't forgive myself, but I promise I'll never do it again. Can you believe me?" I looked at them, my eyes tired and sad. Everything around me seemed to blur, leaving only me and my two daughters. At this moment, I realized that I couldn't keep living in the past, couldn't let anger control me forever. Mistakes happened, but what's important is how we fix them and move on. I pulled them close, and this time it wasn't just a hug, but a strong hug, without anger, without resentment. "I won't leave you," I said. My voice choked. "I don't know what to do to make things go back to the way they were, but I know one thing, that if we work together, we can get through this." Olivia and her sister nodded, their eyes shining with hope. The three of them sat there for a long time, saying nothing, simply sitting together. There was a strange sense of peace in the air, as if everything, though changed, could still begin again. And then I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sunset was starting to fade into the quiet night. In my heart, everything was still not completely resolved, but at least today I could move past my anger. And perhaps that was the most important thing. I couldn't change the past, but I could decide how to live with the future. "I love you," I said, turning to look at them, and this time I didn't feel the pain. There was only love, strong and steady, like a father's love for his children. After that moment of silence, the atmosphere in the room gradually returned to normal, although it was still too early to say that it had healed. I don't know when the anger in me completely dissipated, but at least for now, I no longer felt the sharp pain in my heart every time I looked at my two daughters. We sat there together for a while, saying nothing, but I felt a strange connection between me and my daughters. A connection not through apologies or promises, but through hugs, through forgiveness, through the realization that we both needed each other. Then I stood up and went to my room. The feeling was no longer heavy, but in my heart there were still many unanswered questions. No matter what, we had weathered a big storm, and I knew we would continue to move forward. My family, despite the challenges, would still be a family. The next day, everything seemed to be back to normal. The house was still warm. The laughter of the children echoed during breakfast. But in my heart, I learned something important, and I realized that nothing is more important than understanding and patience in the family. Sometimes, mistakes happen not to kill the relationship, but to test our love and tolerance. Whether parents or children, we all make mistakes, but the important thing is that we can fix and learn from those mistakes to become better. Forgiveness is not easy, but it is necessary for the family to be stronger. Don't let anger blind you and make you miss the opportunity to help and love each other. Know how to listen and share. Don't let anger overwhelm your mind. Especially with loved ones in the family, sometimes just a hug, a loving word can heal all wounds. Don't forget that family love is the most precious thing, and we must never give up on this journey.